In 2002, my eldest son was born, and there was complications with his birth that caused hypoxic injury to his brain. I knew at the time, from treating children for 12 years, that in order to train a child in neurofeedback, they have to be old enough to be able to sit there, follow the instructions, and engage in the treatment. And I know that if you take an early life injury and then you wait 5 years, you're pretty much behind the eight ball by the time you get into treatment.
Yeah.
You know, you're missing milestones, your development's delayed, all that kind of stuff. It was about 18 months after the birth, and he wasn't walking, he was barely talking, maybe one or two words. I knew from my training that he was delayed. And so I was like, I got to do something.
Yeah.
And so I decided I was going to try to find a way to help my kid. I was hell bent on it. And I just started flipping over everything I could find. That's when I decided to get into another form of neurofeedback that I think could help him. And I learned it. And that was the product that I ended up reverse engineering because it did some of what I wanted, but it wasn't enough. So I broke into it and changed it. But it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And so that's when I was like, I need help. And I wanted to make a stimulation device. See, with neurofeedback, it's operant conditioning, right? We set the computer, we tell the computer, monitor this brainwave, and when it goes up in power, give a reward. When it goes down in power, don't do anything or take away the reward.
Right.
And back in the day, it was a bell. So when you were doing it, you heard ding, 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 that stupid bell. I was like, I couldn't stand it. But then but technology kept on rolling, and then they had the screen dimmers, so you could watch a movie and put the screen dimmer over the movie, and when your brain was doing it, the movie was big and bright, but when it wasn't, it gets dark.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, cool, I can do this and see how that rolls with him. And there was some improvement, but with neurofeedback, it takes a long time for the brain to start creating what you want it to create, right? And that's why neurofeedback's slow. You might get the reward a couple hundred times in a 30-minute period.
Right.
But I wanted something that was faster. And so I came across what's called TMS, which is transcranial magnetic stimulation, developed by Anthony Barker in the UK. And when I looked at it, I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then I realized that the intensity of TMS was crazy high. And it was a replacement therapy for electroconvulsive therapy, or what is known as shock therapy. Right? With TMS, they have this big butterfly magnet. They put it up to the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, and then they fire it off. And it's so strong, it triggers a nerve and makes your right hand twitch. Okay? And so that's how they know it's getting in there. And then they bomb the brain, for 25 seconds or so, and then they stop it. And so these pulses, it's the cleared form of treatment that the FDA says is for the treatment of depression. Wow. It's really barbaric. It's very strong. But it does have utility for people with treatment-resistant depression. Mm-hmm. So I was interested in it, but I'm like, there's no way I'm going to put this on a baby. You know, so then I asked myself the question, it's electromagnetic. And so an electromagnetic field will traverse almost everything. If I put a tiny little magnet to your head on one side, I can detect it from the other side of your head with a meter. It'll go right through you seamlessly. And I thought, I wonder if anybody's done it on the low-level side. Instead of TMS, the hammer, what about a whisper? And so then it kind of hit me. I was like, oh, man, this is a great idea. And then I'm like, I need a frequency generator, right? But I didn't know how to build one of those things. But it was like, and I actually started to look on the net for ways to build your own thing. And I found stuff, and I was going to buy the parts and make it. But then something really magical happened. It just continues to blow my mind to this day. Across the street from me, a pro guitar player had moved in, right? And I'm a professional musician. And so I went and talked to the guy. And he's super cool. And I said, hey, man, can I get a lesson? And he's like, sure. And so it was like, I don't know, 2 days before my lesson, and I'm hanging out and I'm watching the movie The Secret, and I don't know if you ever saw it. It's about the law of intention, right? And basically the law of intention is you create the thought in your mind with a feeling in your heart, and you can manifest whatever you want in the world, right? And I was like, right on, I love that idea. And there was one of the guys in the movie, Reverend Beckwith, for one reason, that cat got me, man. You know, I said it. You got to bring up the idea with the feeling of love. And if you do it correctly, you can move the world. So I raised my wine glass and I said, I meet a radio frequency engineer, and him and I make this device and we change the world. And I go, click, ha, 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 glug, glug, you know. And I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be funny. 2 days later, man, I go across the street to this guy's place and I have my guitar lesson. It's over and put my guitar away. Next student walks in. He goes, hey, this is my next student. He goes, Brad, meet Nick. Nick, meet Brad. Brad goes, hey. He goes, what do you do? I go, psychologist, neuroscience. I go, what do you do? He goes, I'm a radio frequency engineer. Fucking time stops. Okay? I could hear the crackle in the air, man. I knew that something real was happening. And I'm thinking in my head, I gotta tell him about the frequency generator. And then I'm like, this is crazy. What are you thinking? You know, and I could feel like time was coming back. I go, I need a 4-channel frequency generator. He goes, okay, that's easy. He goes, for what? And I said, well, I think we can help kids with autism. And he goes, I have an autistic son.
Wow.
30 days later, he built the damn thing by himself. And I'm holding it in my hands. I had programmed it, and I said, okay, let's try a thing I call a brain brightener. We're both sitting there, and we had this cap at the time where it was going to deliver this electromagnetic stimulation. I put it on my head. And Brad is like the most salt of the earth, kind person you've ever met in your life. He's a gentleman in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
And a damn good friend. And he looks at me, and he's got all this concern in his face, and he goes, what happens if something goes wrong? I go, well, call 911. And he says, and what am I supposed to tell him? And I'm like, stop worrying. I lean forward and I hit the button and I start it, you know. And it delivers this stimulation to me for about 30 seconds and then it shuts off. And I take the thing off and, you know, you can't feel it. You don't even know what's happening. But all of a sudden the lights in the room got brighter.
Wow.
And I went, oh, wow, that's a trip, you know. And then I was like, oh, I got another idea. And so we jump into it and we keep on going. We call this the Tuesday night programming sessions. And we would go until, like, I would go to his house like 7 o'clock. We would go to 1, 2 o'clock in the morning just building this thing.
Yeah.
And we were both we knew it. We just knew we had something really powerful on our hands. In such a cool way, we were just driven.
Yeah.
You know, I can't tell you about that. I don't know what that is or where it comes from, you know.
Yeah.
The higher power, there's something there that's really powerful.
Yeah.
But, you know, I got my hands on the first iteration and I started using it on my kid. And I kept everybody blind to what was happening. And he just started coming back.
Wow.
Almost immediately. He started responding. Everybody was telling me, like, he's really doing great. He's following directions. He's speaking more, you know. And he's making eye contact. He's right there. And he rehabbed, man.
Yeah.
In all of its simplicity, all that thing did, it didn't force his brain to do anything. It simply stimulated the cells enough so they called for resources.
Right.
And when the cells call for resources, you get capillary dilation and increased blood flow. And when you get increased blood flow and resources into the brain, it engages in neurogenesis and it begins to repair itself because it's the best doctor in the room. And my kid got better. And that was it, man. At that point, I was like, shit, I got it, you know? And I was stoked. I was getting my board certification in QEEG, and my mentor was Corey Hammond. Corey was a premier psychologist who studied hypnosis under Erickson. And he was at the Utah University of School of Medicine. And Corey was really straight-laced dude, you know, and he's like, I heard you are making something, you know. We're online and we're having my weekly supervision with him. And I said, yeah, you know, and I didn't want to say anything. I'm doing this completely under the radar, you know. And I was like, I knew I could get in trouble for it, but I was like, screw it, man. You can pound sand. I'm going to help my kid, you know. But I wasn't going to be, you know, I didn't put it out there for anybody to know.
Yeah.
But people had been talking, and he said, you know, I heard you made something, and I'm wondering what it is. And I told him about it, and he's like, send me one. Now, we had made five. Okay. So I send him one, and a week later he calls me up, and he's really serious. And I'm thinking, oh, you know, and he said, and this guy, he mentored me in a real sense of a word. I mean, he helped me through, you know, to understand myself better, to understand the world better, understand hypnosis better, understand EEG better, very professional. And so he had a lot of impact on me. And he said, Nick, you know, you have the ethical responsibility to release this to the world. And I was like, fuck, you know. I go, yeah, talk about throwing something on your shoulders. I go, dude, I don't want to do that. I go, I just
Yeah.
want to help a kid. And he goes, are you kidding? He goes, you're not going to release this? He goes, this is fantastic. He goes, I know you have other ideas, don't you? And I'm like, I do. And he's like, you got it. You got to keep on moving forward. And I was like, okay. And that's when Neurofield was born.